Hello and welcome to the Republic of Football. I'm your host, Ishmael Johnson, alongside our staff writer, Carter Yates, and tuning in from via Austin, I should say, is our senior writer, Mike Craven, who will be joining us. Two members of our college staff at TexasFootball.com. On today's episode, we're going to be talking with SMU head coach Rhett Lashlee. Carter and Craven sat down with him a little bit earlier today to discuss the Mustangs' rise and their upcoming debut in the ACC. Carter also, there's another tease, Carter also has another story coming out hopefully soon in the next couple weeks over a particular interesting depth chart situation they kind of got going.
Out by the time this airs.
Okay, perfectly. So there you go. It'll be over the two quarterbacks, and just that's all I'm going to say. There's situations they got going on there with Kevin Henry Jennings and Preston Stone. But before we get into that, we're going to continue kind of a preseason fall camp discussion series that we've kind of gotten going. We did overall kind of feelings about teams. We did questions. We did, kind of talking points. Now this week, we're just going to get into some straight up predictions. Right? We're going to start to predict offensively the top passer, rusher, and receiver in the state. Defensively, sacks. Did we do interceptions too?
Interceptions, yes.
Interceptions.
I forgot to say interceptions, so I'm going to have to kind of wing that one.
I also did too. So I will come.
Well,
up
I
with
sent
mine.
them in first, so you were going off me. So that's my bad.
I copied your work. Craven did all of his homework. And then we would just be straight up picking the best, worst, and most surprising team in the state. So keep this. If you're one of those people that loves to rub it in writers' face that get things wrong, keep this for when December rolls around. You can say, hey, you guys were wrong about this. You're never going to bring up when we're right.
None of this will age like milk.
Right, exactly. So I mentioned Craven's on the line. Craven, what's up, man? How are you feeling about some of these predictions? How are you? Are you ready for the backlash that you're usually the one that gets the brunt of this anyway? So are you ready to be proven wrong in November?
Yeah, I welcome it. Kind of like Rick and Morty. I've seen what you cheer at, so your boos mean nothing to me. Yeah. So I can take it all. I have no problem with that.
All right, so let's get into it. We'll start, like I mentioned, offensively. We're gonna passing, rushing, and receiving yard leaders. I'll go ahead and say our predictions, right, and then I'll let everybody kind of defend theirs because we have some overlap. So I don't want to say things twice. So for passing yards, Mike Craven picked Chandler Morris. Carter Yates picked Jordan McLeod. In the document, I said Chandler Morris, but I'm going to amend mine.
Okay, here we go.
I'm going E.J. Warner at Rice.
Wow.
I'm going to go
That was mine.
E.J. Warner at Rice because I do think Chandler Morris is if there's betting odds, I think he'd be the favorite, right? That offense, that quarterback, obviously. Him coming down a level to the group of five. But E.J. Warner, let's not forget, this dude threw for quite a bit before he got hurt at Temple.
306 passing yards per game, which was fifth in the FBS.
Fifth in the FBS. So I do think Dean Connors is going to take a little bit of the pressure off of that, but I think eventually Rice is going to have to kind of figure this out and air it out.
They're still going to be throwing to Dean Connors out of the backfield, too.
Sure, 100%. He was part of that that passing game as well.
Yeah, I had the Lone Star 50 come out about Dean Connors on Sunday, and the biggest thing for Dean Connors is they're going to build the whole plane out of Dean Connors at Rice, whether it's running or passing. I think E.J. Warner's going to throw a lot of footballs this year.
Yeah. All right, Craven, let's start with yours because I had yours as well, but I eventually switched to kind of differentiate some things. Chandler Morris at North Texas. You were kind of the first to put your prediction in. Why was he first on your board?
Well, some of it's just the amount of passes North Texas throws. If you do attempts per game, they're one of the top 20 in the country. So Eric Morris is going to throw the ball around a lot. Then to me, the tiebreaker, because I think the top three are the guys we've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan McLeod, E.J. Warner, Chandler Morris. Texas State has Ishmati.
Yeah.
Rice has Dean Connors. North Texas's best running back. Go.
What school are they playing for now? Because
line,
right,
yeah,
right. And so I'm going to go with the offense that I know wants to throw the football with the quarterback that can do that, throw it around. A head coach, play caller who does that, and likes to throw it around. And then a running back room that I don't think is strong enough to lean on, even as much as they did last year. So give me Chandler Morris. I think the underrated pick here may be Josh Hoover if he's healthy.
Yeah. That's not a bad one.
Craven, I like the Chandler Morris pick. The only qualm I have with it is Chandler Morris has not proven he can stay healthy yet for a full season. So that's the only reason I could see this not working out. And we're not rooting for injuries here, of course. But, he just needs to prove he can stay healthy.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, quietly, TCU was the ranked fourth in the nation last year in attempts per game. They were at 41.9. Some of that's coming from behind, and a lot of that was Josh Hoover late in the season. So if he plays 12 games, Hoover may be in this discussion as well.
I do like Hoover. That Hoover pick a lot is kind of a dark horse. I don't even want to say. I mean, Baron Morton, obviously they're going to be handing the ball off a ton to Taj Brooks. So even if he stays healthy, it's probably not, his numbers probably aren't going to be climbing up there. One I will say that we talked about a little bit on the last episode is going to be Quinn Ewers. I'm very curious to see. I don't think he'll lead the state in passing, but like, would it be like
with those two running backs?
I was about to say with the injuries to the team, like it wouldn't shock me if he's in the top 3 eventually. I can't see a Sark, especially with how much he depends on the running game. I can't see him throwing for like 4,500 yards, but like if he approaches 4,000, it wouldn't shock me at all, 100%. Because you know that they would like to get close to that 3,000, 3,500 range and then run the ball quite a bit to kind of control that side. So,
but screw these honorable mentions. Let me talk about my guy, Jordan McLeod at Texas State.
Go for it, Jordan McLeod.
7th-year senior, Texas State's version of Van Wilder. If Van Wilder had super high football IQ.
Yes.
With G.J. Kinney and Mac Leftwich, 2 offensive minds. We've seen what they did at UIW, Incarnate Word, when Lindsey Scott Jr., the bump he got when they came in and he threw for 60, 70 some odd touchdowns in that single season. I think McLeod adds a different dimension to this offense than TJ Finley had throwing to Joey Hobart. I think really the sky's kind of the limit for McLeod this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only not even worry, I'm just curious about the depth at wide receiver, right? So is it like, which plays into one of Craven's picks later on, which I definitely had a hard time disagreeing with. But it's going to be a lot of Joey Hobart, right? And until I think Cole Wilson's going to take some of that, but it's going to be a lot of Joey Hobart. And is there enough depth there to where they feel comfortable throwing that much, especially like Craven mentioned with Ishmani in the backfield as well?
Yeah, Texas State runs the ball a lot more than people kind of give them credit for on the outside. They were 44th in the nation in attempts per game. JMU with McLeod was 47th. And so I don't think he's a guy that's going to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. He'll use his legs a little bit, hand the ball off a lot, and then he's going to throw it plenty. But I don't think it'll be something that approaches the TCU, SMU, Rice type of offensive systems. North Texas, those kind of systems are going to air the ball out, 35, 40 times a game.
So Craven, give your top 3 then of who you think. Obviously, first for you is Chandler Morris, but who is number 2 and 3 for passing yards this year?
If we're doing yards, that may change up the equation a little bit.
What was it
yards? Touchdowns? I probably would, maybe a Ewers or a Wigman, somebody with some wide receivers that are more explosive. But yeah, if we're doing just passing attempts, I'd probably go Chandler Morris, Josh Hoover, EJ Warner, kind of in that area.
I can see that. That makes sense to me. All right. We talked a little bit about some running backs, so let's talk about who we think. Me and Craven for rushing. Me and Craven went with Taj Brooks. Don't think I think he's going to be up there in terms of leading the nation in both attempts and yards and things like that. Carter went a little bit off the radar, which I like. He went with Le'Veon Moss.
This is a misunderstanding, though. This Craven just threw me off so much. Is this attempts or is this yards?
Were we going off attempts or yards? I was going off yards.
I was going off yards.
Yeah. Yards are fine. Yeah. I just
okay.
when you said who's going to lead in passing, I just I think those two questions are different.
Gotcha.
My answer off the radar is Le'Veon Moss at Texas A&M, and if it was rushing attempts, that completely changes to Taj Brooks.
No, sure,
it's Taj time in Lubbock this year.
I mean, I was going to say like me and Craven can get this off really quickly. Like Taj Brooks, it's Taj time. Joey McGuire said he's going to break the rushing record, right? Like he said, whatever. What was the quote at Big 12 Media Day? Whatever the total is, 1 yard later, that's going to be his total this year, basically, because he's going to break it.
Record.
Yeah. And Craven, I mean, you can just echo the same thing. We know what time it is in Lubbock, basically.
Yeah, Taj is going to run the ball a lot. Zach Kitley's openly talked about how it took him about till week 4, week 5 to realize this is Taj's team, and I don't think he's going to need that long this year. They're going to protect Baron Morton. Taj is going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah. All right, but I don't hate the Le'Veon Moss pick. Carter, what's your reasoning?
Ruben Owens being injured for the year, and now it's Amari Daniels and Le'Veon Moss, and then E.J. Smith kind of as the distant number 3rd there. I just think Kellen Klein's offense at Texas A&M likes to put the ball on the ground. They prioritize a running offense. Connor Wegman hasn't shown a lot of mobility in college per se, but he was very mobile in high school. I know that. So he might be doing some QB run game as well. But I think I saw a report from Brent Zerneman out of the Houston Chronicle that they were going to lean on Le'Veon Moss pretty heavy after Ruben Owens' injury, so that's why I picked him.
Craven, what's kind of your thoughts there on Le'Veon Moss kind of getting more, especially if we mentioned in the wake of the Ruben Owens situation?
Yeah, I think it's a really good pick. That offensive line, statistically, the last few years, much better at running the football than pass protection. And Colin Klein coming in there. Jalen Knighton's another guy. What's interesting about this is there's a ton of really good running backs around the league, but it's like, where are you a lone back?
Sure.
Maybe Cam Cook becomes that at TCU, Ishmati at Texas State. I just think the rooms at like UTSA, Baylor, some of those places that are going to run the ball a lot are just so crowded that not one of those guys is probably going to emerge. So, yeah, I think Moss is a player with, if he gets his hot hand and stays healthy, probably going to lead the Aggies in rushing and definitely may, approach Brooks in that category.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to receiving. I hinted at Craven's pick a little earlier. Joey Hobart at Texas State. Carter, you had Josh Kelly at Texas Tech. I went with Isaiah Bond at Texas. Let's start with Craven because I mentioned it earlier. Joey Hobart, because of the loss of Ashton Hawkins, I think Cole Wilson has the potential to step into that number 2 spot. But as we saw last year, Joey Hobart came onto the scene from the FCS, one of the best route runners in the state, some of the best just pure hands in the state. We make fun of the lack of gloves, but it doesn't matter. Why was he your pick to be the number 1 receiver eventually in the state, yards-wise?
The no gloves aura does help. No lie there.
Yeah.
But I think he's just going to be a reliable, consistent target in the passing game. And Texas State's offense doesn't mind throwing to the same guy 15 times a game. Like if he's open, throw it to him.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying to spread it around for spread it around purposes. He is the dude until another person steps up to kind of take some of that pressure off. Ishmael is going to get so much attention in the run game. I think he's kind of there, not a tight end, but like that safety blanket. That's just such a good route runner. He's always open. It feels like he's gonna put up a lot, and he just doesn't have as much competition around him to steal the receptions.
Yeah. All right, Carter, you went with Josh Kelly.
A little more crowded wide receiver room.
A little more crowded wide receiver room, but I think probably the most breakout potential, if I'm being honest there.
Yeah, I think on the Lone Star 50 series, I put that he's Texas Tech's most important transfer. And talking to Craven, I didn't really know too much about Josh Kelly going into researching the season, but he said, Texas Tech feels like he can be a different type of receiver, a true X wideout, kind of a la Michael Crabtree since they've had Michael Crabtree, and that's really big shoes to fill, of course, but that's how high they feel about him. Everyone talks about Micah Hudson, the freshman coming in, the 5-star, but I think Josh Kelly's flown a little bit under the radar this offseason, so I'm banking on Micah Hudson, Caleb Douglas, taking the defensive attention away to where Josh Kelly isn't getting double-teamed, and he goes off in that high-paced offense.
I could definitely see that happening, especially when you have how young or unproven their other options are. We talk about Koy Aiken a lot. Obviously, you mentioned Micah Hudson. You just kind of need the grown-up in the room, right? And he could be that grown-up in the room and kind of take that to the next level. So I definitely can see that happening. I went with Isaiah Bond because talk about crowded wide receiver rooms. But I think when you look at the guys they brought in, Silas Bolden, Matthew Golden, somebody like a Jonte Cook maybe stepping into a bigger role, I think that is a room that still needs the guy, right? I think Matthew Golden could eventually be that guy maybe next year. Jonte Cook, obviously they have high expectations for. I'm forgetting the other wide receiver they just signed this past year.
Isaiah Bond,
Wesco.
Ryan Wingo.
I say Wesco. He's at Clemson. Ryan Wingo, yes.
Another orange team.
But guys that are eventually going to be that. But this year, they kind of, without Xavier Worthy, without, oh my God, I'm blanking.
A.D.
on
Mitchell.
Thank you. A.D. Mitchell. I'm blanking on names today. Without those guys who were kind of those guys, we kind of thought A.D. Mitchell kind of was the number 1 last year, but, it allowed Xavier Worthy to kind of develop further in his own game. They need that guy this year, and I think that's Isaiah Bond. I think he can have that potential season where I think Matthew Golden could end up around 400, 500 yards again, but I think this could be like an 800, 900, potentially 1,000-yard year for Isaiah Bolden because he just has that right now. He has that it factor, and he's the guy that like every catch that you threw to A.D. Mitchell last year. I can see them in situations where it's like, all right, Isaiah, where are you at? We need something to take the defense's top off. We need somebody that's just going to get us a first down. I could see him being that guy in those clutch situations. Again, I think this unit as a whole will be better as a whole next year. when all these guys are a year older. But this year, I think they're so deep, so talented. But clearly, Isaiah Bolden to me is the number one guy.
Isaiah Bond, Silas Bolden, Matthew Golden.
Jesus.
No, dude, my brain is in a pretzel right now.
I know.
With these
I said Isaiah Bolden. Isaiah Bond.
Try to say all those names 3 times fast. You can't do it.
Bolden, Golden, Bond, too many things going on. Yeah.
All I know is they're really good at catching the football.
They're really great. I mean, look, and Sark knows Alabama wide receivers, right? He loves he went to go get one, and he was like, let me get this guy. I can work with him because the last guy I had that was a Bama wide receiver won the Heisman, so we'll figure that out later. All right. Let's move a little bit into the defense. Let's go with sacks because this is the one that we all had when we were assigned the discussion. Craven had Elijah Roberts from SMU. Carter, you had Nick Skirton and I from A&M, and then I had Trey Moore from Texas. I want to start with, we haven't talked to SMU, so Craven, why was Elijah Roberts your pick for this?
It's a really good edge rusher. Started his career at Miami, has transferred to SMU and grown up a little bit in the AAC. I think moving back to a conference he's familiar with and wants to prove that he belonged in the whole time. He's a senior that can really raise his draft stock. He's a big guy. Was right there next to Trey Moore in the sack race last year in the state. Second in the American Defensive Player of the Year voting. I just think with the amount of attention the rest of that defensive line is going to get, Elijah's going to get to 10, 12, 13 sacks, and that may be able to do it.
And plug for the Rhett Lashlee interview we got coming up. We talk with him extensively about rebuilding the trenches into more of a Power 4 type program because, Craven, you talked about it. When you went to SMU in 2018, man, they don't look like they do now when you go in 2024.
Yeah, he's kind of one of those guys that's led that charge. Like I said, he started at Miami. He's one of those kind of recruits that was recruited to play ACC football regardless. Now they got 12 of those guys along the defensive line, and so definitely looks a little bit different on the SMU campus and that practice these days. I just think he's poised for a real breakout season.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see as that SMU defense as a whole that took a step last year. Seeing those guys, like I'm a big fan of. Obviously, I've talked a ton about Alex Kilgore as one on the edge, but those guys like Elijah Roberts who have, in my opinion, NFL potential. Do they take that next step forward and kind of push themselves to the forefront into the national scene a little bit more now that they're on the Power 4 scene? All right, Carter, you mentioned Nick Skirton, the Purdue transfer now at A&M, working with the defensive mastermind Mike Elko.
Oh, yeah.
Was that a no-brainer for you?
Well, Big Ten sack leader, working with the defensive mastermind Mike Elko, and everything about Texas A&M's offseason has been, we're just about the work, like none of that outside noise, none of that publicity, like we're about substance, except for Nick Skirton, where it's like this guy is awesome, and he is going to be a beast. Yeah. So I'm going with him for the sack leader. Yeah, back in the state. He was out of state for a little bit at Purdue. Bryan grad, I'm pretty sure. Yes, I think it was. I don't think it's Bryan High School. Yeah, Bryan High School. Yeah, this is a guy who, when they landed him, right, he had, I believe, 10 sacks last year as well. This is another 10-sack guy. By the way, all these guys are 10. I just realized because you mentioned Trey Moore, I think, finished with 10. Or Craven, did he have 10? I can't remember if he exactly finished with 10.
Yeah, like 15 and a half. 15,
there you go. That's right.
Yeah, but Nick Skirton in the Big Ten. 10 is like 17 and a half. Like, come on, we got to do it.
Well, I'm saying, all these guys are double-digit sack guys, right? We didn't just pull these names out of nowhere. All these guys are productive edge rushers or linebackers, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, Nick Skirton came in. He was a massive get for this defense who lost again. You lose a guy like Walter Nolan, you kind of need to secure that defensive line / box a little bit, and that's a hell of a replacement. I went with Trey Moore because kind of obvious, Craven mentioned it, one of the best defensive players in the entire state last year, regardless of Power 5, Group of 5, whatever. Texas gets him, and this is a spot that they needed desperately. Edge rusher, pass rush, that's not interior. Get somebody on the outside to pressure the quarterback. Now, stepping up to the SEC, that's obviously going to be a big challenge. If he could get 15 sacks in the SEC, awesome. We'll see you in New York probably if that's the case, right? So I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think there is a naturally gifted pass rusher here that it would not stun me if he has 9 or 10 sacks. 15's a lot for any year, I don't think anybody's getting 15 sacks this year, I'll put it that way. But I wouldn't be surprised if 9 or 10 gets the leader in the state, and I wouldn't be shocked if that's him this year. Craven, do you have any thoughts on either of these guys, Skirton or Trey Moore?
Yeah, so Trey Moore with 22 sacks over the last 2 years total. It's going to be interesting to see him move up. Not a huge guy. Doesn't have the length a lot of these edge rushers at the top have. But he's just a motor, go after you, hair on fire, effort player, and that can get you a lot of stats, even in the SEC. Nick Skirton's amazing. My worry with Nick Skirton, and it's not really a worry, is just that A&M defensive line is so good. Like, they're going to be racing to the quarterback. He's not going to win every single one of those. So I think the Aggie defensive line is going to be great. I just wonder who else takes those sacks, whereas like SMU, I just don't know who else is going to be their sack guy. Texas, they really need Trey Moore to be that dude. So it would not surprise me. If he can get double-digit sacks, moving up from the G5 to the SEC, he's going to be probably a top 3-4 round draft pick. And at his size and his recruiting profile, that would be an incredible journey for Mr. Trey Moore.
Yep. All right, let's go to interceptions. Craven, you had Bryce Anderson down. Carter, did you think of a name?
I thought of one.
Okay, what do you got?
I'm going SMU strong safety Isaiah Nwokobia.
I like that one. Okay. So, Craven, let's start with yours first. Bryce Anderson, why is he your pick?
Yeah. So Elko comes in and immediately moves Bryce Anderson from nickel to kind of deep safety. And at that deep safety position where he's probably recruited more to play, he's going to be able to center field it, use his football IQ, break on some balls. He's like that Troy Polamalu type player there. I think he's going to really just be a ball hawk, somebody who outthinks a few quarterbacks. Mike Elko, if he does anything, he does a lot of things really well as a defensive coordinator. The best thing he does is probably manipulate the safeties and use them in tricky ways that create plays. So I think Bryce Anderson's going to be star at a deep safety spot this year.
I really like that pick. All right. You picked Nwokobia from SMU.
Yeah.
What you got?
So I was going to go a Big 12 team because I was thinking Big 12 likes to air the football out. And then I started thinking, actually, they're kind of sneaky ground and pound.
Yeah, it's like they've reverted. They reverted back to
they're a little more old school this year. So I'm going ACC. I'm going to a team that's going to be competitive. So teams are going to be throwing a lot against them.
Okay.
I also think Isaiah Nwokobia just always has his nose around the football. He's just one of those type players with great football IQ, great instincts, a very athletic type of player in the backfield. They gave him the number 23 jersey again this year for Jerry Levias. I think the first time they've had a guy back-to-back wear that number, which shows you how his offseason's been. He hasn't taken any steps back. That's it. It's just a vibes play for me right here.
I like that. I went a little bit off the board. Mine is a reach that I'm very much admitting to. I'm going Manny Muhammad.
I don't think that's much of a reach.
So, two Texas guys for sacks and interceptions is going to reach. But anyway, my logic is we mentioned how this may not be the year that he breaks out, or maybe like the year that he kind of gets, I don't want to say like humbled a little bit, but he has to get used to being the guy, consistent starting guy, especially next to Javion Cole, I should say. But I think teams are going to test him. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity to get those picks. It's going to be a little bit of an outlier in the what was the year that Trayvon Diggs was just throwing at a ton, but he also picked off a ton. Where it was I think it was the year before he got
he had 10 interceptions and also 12 touchdowns let up or something like that.
Right, something like that. And so, but I could see him kind of. He's such a dynamic player that I could see him having a sophomore slump in terms of teams are going to pick on him. He's going to give up some yards, but also. He has his coverage ability and his size and everything else makes up that of a prototypical modern corner. So I could absolutely see him eventually making all Big 12 because it was he had 6 picks. What the heck happened? It was everybody was trying to pick on him because Javion Cole turns out to be a pretty good corner. I wouldn't be shocked if teams tried to humble him a little bit and test him a little bit too much to where he gets some of those highlight picks. I'm going Manny Muhammad. I know it's a reach a little bit, but because, again, he's just a sophomore after – working his way late into the depth chart last year, but I see the potential and I see his ability translating into somebody that can get that production. So, Craven, what do you think about those? Either of those?
Yeah, I think they're both good picks. SMU's secondary is probably the most improved unit in the whole state last year, from 22 to 23. It's a pretty miraculous turnaround. Jonathan McGill also back there would be a pretty solid pick. The thing with Texas, I could probably pick 2 or 3 guys. John A. Barron's another name.
I was about to say Barron was on my list too.
As somebody who usually around the football is going to play a couple of different positions.
Michael Taft.
And we'll see how that goes, yeah.
Michael Taft. Michael
Taft.
Look, we keip saying no to him, and he keeps showing up anyway, so he might have.
He's like that move, the party ended 4 hours ago, and he's still here.
Just dancing in the corner.
I love him. Mallory, who would you say your picks are for passing, rushing, receiving sacks based off who we picked? Who won the arguments?
You go to our judge.
Whoever picked EJ Warner at passing.
Yeah, let's go, baby.
I actually was gonna pick EJ Warner because we are big EJ Warner fans and Rice fans here on this podcast. So
that's our boy.
Maybe Ish wins the count here.
Let's go, baby. I'll take that.
I didn't have Taj Brooks.
I picked North Texas's quarterback and didn't even win this thing. How does that happen?
Look, her love for EJ Warner overrides her alma mater. That's crazy. That's crazy.
No. I did pick Taj Brooks at running back though too when I started making my list though.
There you go.
Whoever picked Taj Brooks wins as well. So, was that you too, Ish?
Yeah, that was me and Craven. I mean, I appreciate Carter being different. I could not be different because I'm not picking against a Maynard guy. So.
No, I know, for sure. But everybody wins. Okay?
Everybody wins. Okay. Laurie,
Thanks, Oprah.
Yeah. Let's get to the last category. We'll kind of bundle this all together. Best team, worst team, surprise team. And yeah, I think first let's get to the best team because we all picked the same team. It's Texas.
I tried so hard to zag here.
It's hard not to. They have the highest ceiling. They have the best talent. It's like the only thing that could like make you feel different, in my opinion, is if A&M was at a different place right now, right? Because they're the ones that would potentially have the talent, that would have the ceiling, right? Winning the SEC or something, right? It's hard to talk ceiling and not just say, yeah, it's Texas. If all these teams hit their ceiling, it's Texas.
I mean, it's low key. I mean, we said it before. This is no secret. It's low key going into the year, a down year for the Texas teams.
Sure.
Except for the Texas Longhorns, where it feels like expectations are sky high.
Yeah. Craven, can you make an argument for
number two?
Else?
Who's number two? Respective to their conference, maybe Texas State, if we really think they're about to win the Fun Belt Championship. Other than that, you would say SMU maybe, but I think their cap is not their cap, but a good year for them is going to be 7-8 wins in the ACC.
2 years. Number two is actually tough.
Well, Craven, you put Texas A&M, didn't you, at number 2 on your power poll?
I think A&M's a playoff contender.
If things go
Notre
right,
Dame's lost a couple offensive linemen, specifically their left tackle. The quarterback's been injured all offseason, and it's a quarterback Mike Elko coached against. If A&M messes around and wins that opener in Kyle Field, 9-3 may get you in the dance, and they can definitely go 8. What is that? 8-3 the rest of the way. So I think A&M's the second best team in the state. I think
I have to strain less to see A&M as opposed to like other teams because, like, of course, we have the discussion about Texas Tech and all these things. Like, if this goes right, and it's like, okay, there's less strings attached to A&M. If it's just like, okay, yeah, if they just end up being as good as they are on paper, what all these recruiting guys and all these highly touted recruits and all that, yeah, sure, they're there. So I think the easy answer is number 2 for A&M as well. So, all right, let's get to the worst because we had some varying, a little bit of variance. Me and Craven had UTEP. Carter had Houston. Carter, explain why you hate Willie Fritz.
That's not it at all. Do not put words in my mouth here. My optimism rankings, I think, have come out at this point. Houston, they're last in my optimism rankings, but the description is my apocalypse bunker has enough snacks to last me through this season. The cupboard at Houston is bare.
Are you in Chernobyl? You're just waiting out the storm in Chernobyl.
Waiting out the storm, man. I mean, Craven said it before. Willie Fritz is Novocaine. He wins everywhere he goes. They got rated in the transfer portal. They're in the Big 12, which is not an easy conference. I think if you put UTEP and Houston on a neutral field, Houston would win that game. But I think Houston might be like last in the conference. Yeah, and maybe UTEP is too. I don't know, but
I mean, yeah,
they're up there.
I'll let Craven start off about why we hate Scotty. No, I'm kidding. But no, like we've talked about how rough this year is going to be, Craven, for UTEP's first year under Scotty Walden.
Yeah, I mean, they start off with Nebraska, and it doesn't get a ton easier from there. Liberty early on in the season, Western Kentucky. They go at Colorado State. So it's going to be a tough start. I just worry what their attrition looks like. And by the time they get to the second half of the season where they could win some of those games, like, is the roster still even healthy enough to go play? Sam Houston did a great job of that last year. Maybe UTEP can kind of replicate that and finish strong. But, I'll take UTEP just because of how quick that turnover is going to be. He's just changing so much. It just maybe they surprised me. I mean, Texas State surprised me last year. I had them at like 10 or 11 at this point last year, but it just feels like a very, very big project ahead of them in El Paso.
But how can you not feel super excited for the season when you got Scotty Walden as your head coach? I mean, that dude is a ball of energy.
Honestly,
it's hard not to buy into it.
I was about to say it's
like a Joey Maguire kind of effect.
That's the thing. It's like you look at them, you're like, oh man, what's the quarterback situation? What's going on? But then you just hear him talk. You're like, yeah, I'm looking forward to UTEP this year.
Yeah, he might be the best quarterback. Might be the best offense in the state. Yeah. I don't know.
You're like, he's gonna be fun. Is this offense gonna be fun? You got to wait till actual kickoff. But
the ROF maxim is the new head coach is the polar opposite of the former head coach, which is basically like the new girlfriend theory.
Sure.
The season's now the third date for UTEP fans and Scotty Walden.
That's fair.
This is where we find out if this relationship is going to last, because he's won the first 2 dates.
Oh, sure.
Through the offseason, through the social media.
Yeah, you wanted to call back. You're okay with her calling back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Craven. I think that's his analogy.
Oh yeah, no, that was a great one. He had that from day one.
First 3 road games for UTEP, all before the start of October. At Nebraska, at Liberty, at Colorado State.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's brutal.
Oh, their 4th road game at Western Kentucky.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
TJ Finley.
Yeah, whoever made this,
it's just tough.
Whoever made
Finley,
that schedule's a sicko.
Yeah, it's nasty. All right,
that's mean.
Let's get to our last topic. Surprise team. We have some variants here, all different picks. Craven picked Texas Tech. Carter picked Rice. I picked Sam Houston. We'll start with. I haven't gone first. I'm going first. Sam Houston. This is a team that was brittle, hurt, all that last year, and we're still like 3 plays from making a bowl game. Mm-hmm. I think if they just literally stay respectably healthy as an average college football team should, as in not last year, I think they get to 6 or 7 wins. I really do. This is a team that I'm very excited to see Skylar Cassidy at the Division I level, or the FBS level, I should say. Very excited to see what he can do with that defense. A defense that was already pretty good. Offensively, we talked about it. They were bad last year. Bad offensive line. Quarterback play didn't really stabilize until well into conference play. No backfield. Literally, if any of those things just approach below average instead of starting off horrendously, this is a totally different team. Mm-hmm. And so I think the stretch there from where they were last year to bowl team is not that far, to where if this team's knocking on 6 or 7 wins, everybody's like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. People that didn't pay attention, obviously, like us, who saw how close they were to that margin. But this year, I could see in November, December, people being like, hey man, Sam Houston, that's awesome. What a turnaround. What, things like that. Just because so many things went wrong behind the scenes, off the field. Everything went wrong. To where, again, just have an average college football season as far as attrition, injuries, things like that go, and I think they walk to 6 wins. I genuinely do believe that. So they're my pick for my surprise team in terms of that jump from where they were.
I like it. They lost 5 games by 5 plays, win some of those plays, win some of those games, and they're a turnaround.
Yeah.
My surprise team, I think, is Rice right now, because kind of judging the fan base, they're almost expectant, and they think, if not now, then when for Rice? And I don't know if nationally people think that about Rice right now. Sure. I think they're going to have a down year because JT Daniels, Luke McCaffrey are gone. But we talked about E.J. Warner, big E.J. Warner podcast here. I like Dean Connors a lot at running back. They're the most intact team in Texas, and Mike Bloomgren is coaching for his job this year. Mm-hmm. So put all that, mix it in the pot, and hopefully it's 7 wins in a bowl game.
I like it. I think a lot of people are counting them out, and I think that they're a lot more talented than people realize. Craven, Texas Tech. Why would they surprise people this year?
So I went with Texas Tech because if Rice surprises, they win 7. If Sam Houston surprise, they win 7. If Texas Tech surprises, they win 10 and go to the college football playoff as the Big 12 champion. I think people got a little too ahead of their skis or too far in front of their skis with Tech going into last year.
Yeah.
And it's made people reverse course and not really think about Texas Tech at all going into this year. And this all hinges on Baron Morton being healthy.
Yes.
And also, if Baron Morton's not healthy, they could be the surprise team of the year as well, because they may end up 3-9.
Right.
I think it could go either way depending on the quarterback health. But if Morton's healthy, with what they've done with the wide receiver unit, the offensive line can come together with Caleb Rogers kind of on the inside now, Sheridan Wilson growing up a little bit. And we talked about Taj Brooks. Tim DeRuyter, defensive guy. They're not going to be top 20 in the nation, but if they can be top 50, top 60 and turn the ball over, with the Big 12 margin of error being so small, a team can win 3-9, go 3-9 or 9-3 relatively easily.
Yeah.
Tech, with the automatic bid and with the early schedule, things set up for them pretty well, and they've closed out seasons. So I think Tech could be a team that flirts with a Big 12 championship. In today's world, you win a Big 12 championship, and all of a sudden you're hosting a first-round playoff game in Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see that happening. I think if we had to do it like a dark horse rankings, I think they're that team that's lurking, right? They're that team that's like, oh man, if things go right, like that's the team that in November you're talking about where you're like, man, where'd this come from? But you know
what I just remembered?
Yeah, what's up?
They wouldn't be hosting a first round game. They'd get a bye.
Oh my God, yeah. Jeez, I have to refresh myself on all these new rules for the playoff.
Because they'd be one of the top 4 conference champions. They'd get a bye.
Oh man.
And be into the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. How about that? That'd be a surprise.
That'd be 100% would be. But like you mentioned, the roadmap is there, and now that the Big 12 is the power nexus is gone at the Big 12, it's kind of it's up for grabs.
So they don't play Kansas State or Utah either.
Oh man,
Lubbock might burn to the ground if they go to the quarterfinals of the college football playoff.
Win or lose in the quarterfinal, it might just burn to the ground. That's a great point. All right, so for all you guys that love to hound reporters and media members on their predictions, you can screen cap those, all that stuff.
Hound me.
Yeah, go for it. When UTEP wins 10 games this year and they're in the playoff.
Send your concerns to @CravenMike on Twitter.
There we go.
I'll put it on the graphic.
So I teased our interview with SMU head coach Rhett Lashlee. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you, with the season approaching, college football season, week 0 is approaching. By the way, do you remember there's a week 0? We got football on week 0. Appropriately, we're talking to Rhett Lashlee. But you're going to need a refresher on all your college gear coming up for the season. I need a refresher. I still haven't gotten a new home field apparel shirt in a while. I also have too many to speak of, so don't judge me on that. Home Field Apparel has you covered. Promo code DCTF for 15% off your first purchase. Nearly every single FBS program in Texas except for Texas State and Sam Houston. I'm trying to make some calls. I'm trying to get my Bobcats on there. UTSA is on there. That's unacceptable. That's not fair. So UTEP. So UTSA is on there. UTEP's on there. All these schools. SMU. We mentioned if you're an SMU fan listening for this interview with Rhett Lashlee. Great pony gear. The best retro vintage apparel on the market for any college football fan. By the way, they're also dropping their kickoff merch. I don't know if you guys have seen this kickoff kits that they have. They're insane. They are, I think, Texas Tech, A&M, Houston, and TCU, I think, are the Texas teams that have their kits. They have mugs, socks, hoodies, sweaters, T-shirts, and I believe flat bill caps and trucker hats. All in one box for those programs if you want them, right? You can shop individually for all those, but they have those bundle packs right now that are special edition just in time for the season. If you need a refresher on all your gear, remember, homefieldapparel.com, promo code DCTF for 15% off your first-time purchase. If you're watching, it's right above my head right here in the top right corner. So, again, please shop there. Support any of the podcasts as well on the Republican Football Network. They all have their own affiliate codes. Once again, homefieldapparel.com. And without further ado, here's our discussion with SMU head coach Rhett Lashlee.
Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football here with Carter Yates and SMU head coach Rhett Lashlee. Coach, welcome back to the Republic of Football.
Hey, man, always good to be with y'all.
I wanted to start off before we got into the football stuff. You were an OC at SMU kind of before the pandemic. You were recruiting back then. You're recruiting now. How different is the perception of the Mustangs out on the recruiting trail as a P4 team compared to 5 or 6 years ago?
It's night and day different. I mean, when I got here my first year, we'd had a couple, I think, 500 type seasons before we got here. And then we went 5-7 our first year. So it didn't make things any easier. But then we did go 10-2 that second year, but I left. So I wasn't here to even feel the bump from just a really good year, much less the power conference stuff. So, what back then we always found is people knew about SMU. Honestly, at that time, outside the state, SMU had a pretty good name, but inside the state, it was not viewed the same. And, we were fortunate to get some guys like Preston Stone that grew up always wanting to go to SMU that were high-profile guys, and we had some transfers and stuff like that, and the James Prochets of the world were here, but it was not the same. And then, to come back when I did, after the 19 season, but then they'd won the next 2 years, like the winning culture helped. we were always viewed respectable, but still not quite on the same plane just because we weren't in a power conference with some of our peers that we recruit against. And so I think that's the biggest thing now. We just feel like there's a level playing field. We've now won at a high enough level consistently, and we're received just much differently now.
What have been some of the tangible benefits you've seen over the last year since that announcement to join the ACC?
Yeah, I think, tangible right away is just recruiting high school kids, the top tier high school kids. I mean, I think you look at our recruiting class sits in top 25 in most scouting organizations have us in their top 25. And I mean, we've never finished in the top 50 that I'm aware of. And that's not because we're in the ACC. It's because we're able to recruit ACC caliber players now and then come here out of high school. The last 5 years, it was all through the transfer portals where we would get those guys on the bounce back. And now we still have the ability to get really good players in a transfer piece if we need to. But just the best high school kids can choose SMU now the first time because they know that all the things they loved about it, from the school to the city to the education to the winning, is great. But now they can play on that big stage and not have to go somewhere else to do that. And so I think what's funny is I think it's really boosted us in a tangible way with the caliber of player we can go recruit now. And I think you're going to look up in 4 or 5 years and you may go, right now we're saying, man, it leveled the playing field and gives us a chance to compete with our in-state peers that we recruit against for the top players in the state of Texas and in Dallas. I think in a couple of years you might look back and go, we have the advantage.
And Coach, one of those places you have the advantage at right now, just looking at your team at fall camp 2 days ago, is in the trenches. It's night and day different. When Craven was talking about going back to SMU at 2018, from what it looks like to 2 days ago, was that a conscious change that you had to make when you got to SMU, or were there other people in your ear telling you about that?
Yeah, so the first year I was just trying to figure out how to be a head coach, and I got hired basically on December 1 of 2021. And that was the first December that you had the one-time transfer and NIL at the same time with the December signing period. And so, trying to keep your roster, there was a lot of things. And then, okay, here's who we have. All right, we retained the guys that we needed to. And, I had enough history when I was here. No, we had good offenses and felt like we could be good on offense again, but we just never played very good defense at a high level or consistently. So we went through the first year, and after the first year, really, we knew about middle of October, but after the season, we just sat down as staff and said, here's the deal. We have top 10 offenses just about every year, top 10 or 15 offenses, but we haven't won a championship here in 4 decades, and we haven't had a top 40 defense in 4 decades. So we're going to go out and we're going to recruit a defense in the portal. We're going to go out and sign an entire defense in the portal. We need 4 D linemen at minimum. We need 2 or 3 linebackers. We need 2 or 3 safeties, 2 corners. Like, that's what we're going to do. And we didn't know if it'd solve the problem, but we were going to do something to try to do something different than what had been done the last 4, 5, 6 years here, solve the problem. And a big part of that was D linemen. And, we did that. Our staff did a fantastic job. We brought in, 12 or 13 really good defensive players. Guys like Elijah Roberts, guys like Jordan Miller, who played alongside Elijah Chapman last year, and some others. And it changed things. And we won a championship, and we had a top 10 defense or top 15 defense, whatever it was. And so that was the mindset shift then is, we're going to score points. That's great. But we got to be a place that plays defense, and we got to be able to stop the run, and which we didn't do the first year. And we got to be able to rush the passer, which we didn't do the first year. And last year, we stopped the run much better, and we were one of the best teams in the country, I think second in the country in sacks. And so we tried to carry that over now into the ACC, one, because it's a system that worked for us, but also going to the ACC, we don't even need better players, we need better depth. And so that's why we went out and got a bunch of D linemen again. And to your point, I think you can just tell. For the first time ever last year, we played at Oklahoma, and in warm-ups, you go, we look like we belong physically. And we're hoping to keep that going.
Well, Coach, you got the defensive lineman to rush the passer. You've also got 2 passers who you're both very confident in. And in Preston Stone, who started all of last year almost, then Kevin Jennings comes in for the American Athletic Conference Championship game. It's really not like a QB controversy. It's just 2 quarterbacks you feel really good in. And I do want to pose a quote to you, though, from the legendary John Madden. He said, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. What's your retort to that? What's your rebuttal?
Yeah, that's a great quote that I've used before. But I think you got to take it for the context that John used it in, and that a lot of times we have used it in. Very rarely do you have two starter caliber quarterbacks on your team. Or you already know who your guy is. Now, look, my retort to that is we have a returning starter who's 11-2 as a starter in his career. I think Preston Stone's first year as a starter, he had his ups and downs, but to be 11-2 as a career starter, lead his team to a championship. I think he finished the season in those last 5 games or so, 17-1 touchdown interception ratio right before he got hurt. He was playing at an unbelievable clip. And he's back and he's healthy and he's had a great fall camp. So that'd be my first retort. The second one would be we have a guy in Kevin Jennings who stepped in and beat Tulane on the road, who hadn't lost much in the last couple of years, including thumping USC the year before. So I think what we have is a QB luxury, to your point. I think we have 2 guys we believe we can win with. I think we have 2 guys our team believes in. And I think we're going to, we needed them both to win a championship last year. I bet we need them both to win games this year. I'm excited about Preston being healthy. I'm excited about him going into his second year, getting that first year as a starter under his belt. I'm excited at Kevin Jennings, who's, I think, even gotten better from last year. And then a guy that doesn't get talked about because it's not part of those 2 is Keldrick Luster from McKinney, that had a fantastic spring and even better fall. And it's kind of cool. You don't see many places anymore that has 3 high school quarterbacks. But we got one from South Dallas and Kevin Jennings. We got one from Central Dallas and Preston Stone. We got one from North Dallas and Keldrick Luster. And they're all really good players, and we're excited to have them.
You've been in crowded quarterback rooms before and been in battles. And what does it do for a team to kind of see the quarterback position be just like the guard or the linebacker or the corner who is battling for their job every single day as well?
Well, it helps you breed a culture of competition, healthy competition, which we want to do here. And I think it helps you have some credibility with the guys that you're going to be who you say you are. You can't, hey, guys, competition matters, and then nobody over here in this position is competing. I also think it speaks to the depth of our team to have 2 guys, and really 3 counting Keldrick, but 2 guys that have played enough, that are quality enough to be battling for that at a high level. I think at the end of the day, the times I've been on teams where you either have a quarterback battle or you have multiple quarterbacks good enough to play, how the health of the quarterback room permeates to the team. And if you have a healthy quarterback room, you're going to have a healthy team and a good year. And if you have a divisive QB room or things get off the rails, it bleeds into your team. And fortunately for us, we have a very, very healthy quarterback room. It's really cool to see guys like Preston and Kevin and Keldrick pull for each other in practice. When a guy makes a big time throw or play, they're some of the loudest people going crazy for him, as opposed to probably what the alternative could be.
We talked about the defense a little earlier. With SMU, we're always talking offense, right? You're an offensive guy. People like talking offense. But Scott Simons on that defense, as you pointed out, has gotten really good. I'm curious, what is Scott like on a headset during a football game?
It makes me happy that I'm not a defensive coordinator, to feel how stressed defensive coaches are. Like, for years as an OC, you don't really know what's going on the other side. And then to flip over when we're on defense and hear our defensive coaches and the little things that an offense does that just absolutely drive them crazy and stress them out. I'm like, wow, that, every now and then I have to flip over just to kind of keep my sanity and be ready to call the next drive. But, man, he does a great job. He really calls the game like an offensive coach. And what I mean by that is he's super smart. He studies film. He knows film. He's great at understanding his opponent and what they're good at and the weaknesses and what's going to give us problems and where we have advantages. But he's really good at finding the areas we have advantages and being in an attack mode, kind of like an offensive coordinator would be, and trying to build a game plan that, we can adjust and adapt to issues or what a team does against us and try to take away what they do best, but then get in positions and put our guys in positions to make plays because he's pretty confident in what's going to happen and he can make a call that almost attacks that like an offensive coach would. And I think that gives our defense confidence that, they trust him. They trust our system now going into year 3. They trust him as a play caller. But intense would be the easiest word I could say for that defensive headset on game day.
First year coaches always talk about how hard it is to hire a first staff. And If you look at the record of a lot of first-year coaches, there's some turnover usually after year 2 or year 3 because something didn't work. It feels like for your staff, most of the guys who have left have gotten promotions or gone on to do something. You haven't had to make any of those huge changes. What is the art to putting together a staff? What do you look for when you're assembling guys and trying to find, a guy like Scott Simons and beyond?
Well, I don't know if I know what the art is. I've only really done it once. So, I think from my perspective, what I believe, what I tried to do, and what I think I would try to do again, I think people drive and people make your culture. Whether it be your staff, you're talking about a staff culture, or the players and the team culture. And so I look for the right people. I look for people that I thought, look, you shouldn't be looking for a DC or a safeties coach or a D-line coach or a receivers coach if they're not qualified. If you're at a place like SMU trying to build a staff. So if I'm down to 3 or 4 candidates at a DC, you're going to look at the track record and they're going to get to that point of, okay, they fit maybe from a resume standpoint or a success standpoint, or they're from Texas or whatever the things are you're looking for. But then it's like within that group, who fits me? Who fits the culture I want to have? Who are the right kind of people? Who are the people that, yeah, they know ball, and yeah, they're high achievers and they want to work hard. They're low ego, high output people, but they also, guys that they care about kids. They care about coaching guys. They care about developing the whole person, not just coaching ball. And, at our level, you got to look at a lot of things from recruiting and all that. An example would be with Scott Simons. I looked for fit, knowing that as a head coach and as a guy who's going to call the offense, I knew a lot of the offensive coaches that we'd be hiring wanted to hire someone on defense that would fit in Texas, that would fit with an offensive-minded, fast-paced play calling type head coach. And in a perfect world, if you can find someone and trust, or at least someone and trust knows them. And it took a while. I looked at several people, and one day I'm like, wow, Liberty's been really good on defense, and that's Scott. And Scott and I worked together in 2012 at Arkansas State. Scott's from the Metroplex here in Texas. So I had at least some affiliation with him, knew him a little bit as an acquaintance, knew who he was, what he stood for, knew where he was from. And then the icing on the cake for me was he had been Hugh Freeze's DC for 2 years. And Hugh Freeze runs a wide open, fast-paced offense, and they had back-to-back top 15 defenses. So when you start looking at all the things you want, to me, it was just kind of the perfect fit. And, I think he's done a nice job transforming the defense here.
Now, how much of the staff building did you learn from Gus Malzahn? I know he was huge in your coaching career. You played quarterback for him in 8th grade, running no-huddle offenses.
Yeah.
What did Gus Malzahn mean for your career?
Yeah, Gus obviously was incredible for me. He coached me, helped let me be a player and have a great experience as a player. And then he gave me a lot of opportunities as a coach, whether it be as a GA or as an offensive coordinator at the Division I level. So incredibly grateful to him. A lot of the things I learned from Gus are ball related in terms of just scheme, but what you also learn from him, and I had the pleasure of the honor of getting to, I worked for Houston Nutt. I worked for Gene Chizik. I worked for Pat Sullivan. I worked for Gus a couple times. I worked for Manny Diaz. I worked for Randy Edsel. I worked for Sonny Dykes. I got to see a lot of different coaches do it different ways, and everyone's different. I think what I learned from those guys, the ones that I liked how they did it, that I also thought fit me, is, again, it goes back to people. I think life's about people and relationships. I think when you start to build a staff, it's like, man, let me get the right people that are like-minded, care about the same things, have similar values, and need to be qualified, okay? But once you get to that qualified pool, get the right people, and then you can solve the problems or the issues, as opposed to, there's pressure. I remember I had pressure to go hire this guy because he can recruit, or this guy because he can do that. And you have to meet certain markers on your roster or your staff. But, man, I've been blessed. I've been blessed here to be on a healthy staff. And if anyone who's ever been on an unhealthy staff, it's miserable, where there's a lot of egos or guys who aren't really for the team, and they're just out for them to pound their chests on all the recruits they signed, or, they're talking behind the coordinator's back and all of that stuff. We don't have that here. And I think that's a tribute to the people we were able to get to come here.
You keep coming back to the people, coach, and that's what's driving your culture. And I keep thinking about something you said earlier in this interview where in your quarterback room, you have Preston Stone and Keldrick from both North Dallas, Kevin Jennings from South Dallas, but all over your roster, it's Duncanville transfers, it's guys from all over the city. How important is that when you're trying to become Dallas's team at SMU?
No, it's huge. And I think, to some degree, the question earlier about what's a tangible way. We haven't experienced all the tangible benefits of the ACC yet, like on this team, because this team is still a heavy transfer-laden team. But, I think, again, starting with this recruiting class that'll come in 2025 and on, we're going to be able to recruit even more local Dallas kids out of high school the first time and still have the benefit of recruiting Dallas kids that want to come home the second time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you'll see our roster grow even more with Texas and Dallas kids than it already is. But that's what we want. I mean, we're crazy if not. We're the only school within 30 miles of Dallas. And Dallas, the Metroplex, about 11 counties. And, I mean, most years it's number one in the country, if not number two, with the most Division I kids signing out of a Metroplex. And so, I mean, why wouldn't we start inside our own city and go inside out? And so many, Dallas is a booming city, right? It's number one in the country for jobs. It's top 5 media market, all the positives of our city. It's safe. It's clean. We have an incredible mayor. Like, kids want to stay here and play. They want their family to see them play. They don't want to have to leave. And for the longest time, they would go, man, I want to go there, but, I want to play on the biggest stage, or I want to have a facility. Well, now we check all the boxes. And so our mindset hasn't changed. I think it's just we're now better equipped to try to fulfill that vision at a higher level.
You've been a quarterback coach and offense coordinator, still calling plays, all that kind of stuff. What was it about D'Eriq King that made you feel like he was a fit from you? And what is it like going from coach of a player that you've been a coach, and then now he's on your staff? What was that evolution like?
It was an easy decision because he's a winner, and I trust him with my life. I trust him with my kids. I trust him completely. That's just, I know who he is. Going back to the people, I got to recruit. I got to coach against him when he was at Houston, which is not fun. Definitely glad I went to DC then, but I do remind him we beat him in those moments, but he was really good. And then, when I got the chance to recruit him at Miami and get to know his family and get to talk to his dad before he passed, get to know his mom, get to know his brother and sisters and like his girlfriend and everybody in his life, and then get to know everybody, his high school coach, everybody around him. Like, there's just certain people you just know, man, that is just an incredible person, incredible human being. People use the it a lot. He's got it. Okay. He does have it. Like, he's the perfect balance of humble and confident. And there's no ego. He's a team guy. He's for everyone around him. He oozes confidence and gives confidence to everyone he communicates with, whether it be a staff member or a player. He's humble enough to say when he doesn't know things, but yet he's got, especially as a player, he's got that dog in him. He's got that competitor in him that he's just a winner. He's going to be successful at whatever he does. He could go out right now and become an accountant and not know anything about it. Within a year, he'd be a great accountant. Like, he's just that kind of guy. And so that's what made it easy. And then just knowing how much our players love him and the fact that he's played at a high level recently, he's been where they want to go or where they are. He knows our offense. He's played in our offense. I just think he's a shooting star, honestly. And we're really excited to have him here. But it was kind of a no-brainer decision for me.
Is he the best quarterback on your roster?
I'm not answering that question. You can ask those guys then. I'll say this. He throws pat and go some days. He'll get in, throw some quick, like if a quarterback, maybe I pull one aside, I'm talking to him, or a guy's getting some water, and he'll look up. He won't stop the drill. He'll just jump in, catch it, and make the throw to the wide out. And I think him and Kevin were talking just today about who could do more in power clean, and I think D'Eriq might have him right now. So it's like, he's still at that age where he feels like he could play a little bit. But I think what he does, though, he reminds these guys, it's just a game. It's a kid's game. It's a game we grew up loving to play. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Yeah, you can get caught up in all the stuff around you. Man, just go play the game you love. And it allows those guys, I think, to have a lot of confidence and play free.
Okay, let's take the current quarterbacks out then, and let's go prime Rhett Lashlee at Arkansas, breaking records in high school, and D'Eriq King. who's winning a passing competition. He might have you in running, but who's winning an accuracy competition?
Now, hold on a minute. I had 29 rushing touchdowns in high school.
Oh, my bad. My fault now.
I mean, the announcer one time said Lashlee's feet are gone with the wind. I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys.
Yeah, you're sneaky fast, Coach. I don't know if you know this term. You're sneaky fast. You're sneaky fast. Carter was also a high school quarterback. He's sneaky fast as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not really.
I think the resume for De'Eric's going to speak for itself. You know, I may have thrown more touchdown passes than him, but he was definitely a better player, I would say, in high school, and I definitely know he was in college. And I think, you know, you also look at where he played in Houston and the competition. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Kyle Trask was his backup.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle Trask was an NFL draft pick, and De'Eric wasn't. Kyle Trask was his backup. Couldn't even get on the field. Like, that shows you who De'Eric is and was. So, yeah, De'Eric's got me beat there.
Those Manville teams are really, really good. Before we get you out of here, playing in week 0, going to Nevada. Do you say Nevada or Nevada, by the way?
I say Nevada. I don't know what we're supposed to say.
I say Nevada because I'm from Texas, but I think that's wrong. We tend to say
I may say
wrong
Nevada.
here.
You know what? I may say it different every time I say it.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to go about it.
That's what I do with caramel.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I was just curious. Do you like week 0 games? What is it different? Is it anything different? Kind of what does that do for a schedule, I guess, for a coach?
Yeah, this is my first time being in a week 0 game, so I don't know. I'll tell you at the end of the year if I like week 0. I mean, it happened fast. You know, I don't like the idea that we had to come in July 22nd, 23rd to report. You know, it extends the season by almost a week to 10 days. But, you know, that being said, you get an extra bye week out of it too. And on a year like this year, when it's a leap year, we already had 2. So we have 3 bye weeks, which obviously makes the season longer. But when you start looking at who we're going to play and the league we're moving up to and how we're moving this transition, it might help us to have those additional breaks to try to remain healthy. And maybe if we get some guys hurt in the middle of the year, have quicker times to bring them back, or if we're banged up, you know, get a chance to try to recharge so we can, you know, try to maintain throughout this season. So, look, at this point, we're about almost a week from playing. I mean, you get to where you're just ready to play someone else. So it doesn't matter if it's week 0, week 1. We're past the fall camp part. It's game week in our eyes. And so now all that part's out the window. But I'll know at the end of the year if I like it or not.
All right, Coach. Appreciate you taking the time. Enjoy the trip to Nevada/Nevada. And we will catch up after that.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.